Rudy Gobert is unequivocally the most disliked player in the NBA. This man is to the league what grease is to the kitchen sink drains. Never has a player with such a stellar professional and international career had his legacy battered to this extent. Gobert's career is the subject of constant scrutiny, and most bizarrely, the tarnishment is mainly pushed by other NBA players.
Rudy sucks, not me, but I do.
Again?
For as much of a brotherhood as the NBA claims to be, they all have come together to burn Gobert at the stake. With a resume that will see him be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, why is he so viscerally hated? And before y'all comment anything, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. So with all of his accumulated international accolades, Rudy Gobert will walk in there. His list of haters is endless, but his number one hater has always been Draymond Green. Genuinely, what the hell has Gobert done to this man? Well, it all started with the sub from Gobert nearly 10 years ago. So the Frenchman was the first to cast a stone, and their back and forth continued for some years, picking up steam when Gobert cried in a sit down because he didn't make the All-Star team, and Green made no attempts to take the high road, understandably clowning the 7-footer. And the bickering back and forth never ends. Green doesn't want to be compared to Gobert. Gobert doesn't want to talk about Green. When Green Roy Jones Jordan Poole before the start of the 2023 season, Gobert showed no remorse in the pettiness department, cooking up a tweet that would backfire on him, because at the end of the 2023 season, Gobert punched his teammate Kyle Anderson, and Green reacted to this situation with a perfect rebuttal. Oh, and then he called Gobert a bitch on his podcast.
Kyle Anderson uttered some words to Rudy Gobert that a lot of people thinks.
And within 2 minutes to their first meeting this season, Green put Gobert in a rear naked choke that would make Charles Oliveira proud. So now we've upgraded from Twitter fingers to battery, which is quite a leap. But even after all that, it still doesn't end, because Green is relentless with his hatred, continuing to do so on national television in the TNT broadcast of the conference finals. And that's where we are currently. Both these guys are the top two greatest defenders of the 2010s, and they will never get along with each other. This is lifelong smoke. What has Rudy Gobert done in his career to even be so disliked? Let's look at where it all began. Gobert was born on June 26, 1992 in Saint-Quentin, which is a city in the department of Aisne. Gobert was surrounded by basketball from the beginning of his life, with his father being a former pro, playing for numerous clubs in France's top-flight division of basketball. Gobert's boyhood included his mentorship under his hometown club, Saint-Quentin Basketball. He'd play for Cholet Basketball, another French club, from ages 19 to 21. His statistics were not eye-popping by any means, but his raw physical talent would attract the attention of NBA scouts. After the 2013 LNB season, where he led the league in blocks, Rudy Gobert would declare for the NBA draft. The Denver Nuggets selected the big man 27th overall, subsequently trading him to the Utah Jazz. Analysts predicted he'd be a long-term project, one that wouldn't show its yields until much further down the line. But Gobert was ready for the league by his sophomore year, coming in 5th place for Defensive Player of the Year. By his 4th year, he was on the All-Defensive First Team and the All-NBA Second Team, and Gobert would make the All-Star Team in 3 consecutive years between the ages of 27 to 29. He'd average 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks in that span. Gobert's rise to prominence came alongside the Utah Jazz acquiring Donovan Mitchell in the 2017 NBA Draft, whom the Denver Nuggets also handed them, funny enough. Can you imagine Mitchell as the Joker's running mate? We're looking at a modern dynasty. But the Utah Jazz also had high hopes with their tandem of Spider and the Stifle Tower. In Mitchell's rookie year, Utah finished 5th in the Western Conference and dismantled the OKC Big Three led by Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony. The Jazz would spend the next couple years building on their early success with Mitchell as their flagship player by growing and expanding upon their core, remaining constant in the playoff race in a transitioning Western Conference. The West was recovering from the disbandment of the KD-led Golden State Warriors, who dropped an iron curtain over any team that dared to even dream of making it out. Utah had an opening. Their best shot at reaching the finals was in 2021. Gobert and Mitchell, coming off an all-star season as a pair, marched their team to the best record in the league with 52 wins and 20 losses. They discarded the infant Memphis Grizzlies in an effortless fashion, and after seizing a 2-0 advantage versus the LA Clippers, it appeared as if the Utah Jazz were conference finals bound, but the Clippers came storming back to tie the series 2-2 after Game 4, and even with the absence of Kawhi Leonard, Paul George would get his lick back against the team that had embarrassed him 3 years prior. With the highest of expectations, the Jazz fell short in 2021. They'd still be competitive in 2022, but now there was animosity brewing internally. Since the pandemic, the narrative surrounding the Utah Jazz involved a splintered relationship between their franchise players. Most people are aware of the press conference that involved Rudy Gobert joking about COVID shortly before he contracted the disease himself. And afterwards, Donovan Mitchell caught the disease, so obviously fingers were going to be pointed in one direction. Looking back, Gobert's jest wasn't malicious or anything, but during that time, people were taking the virus a lot more seriously. So this action became the rift not only between Gobert and his teammates, but between him and the league as a whole, as many saw him as the reason why the season got shut down. Which, let's be real, the season was going to get cancelled either way. He just happened to have the worst comedic timing imaginable. But since this deplorable act from the Frenchman, the Utah Jazz have split the pair, sending Gobert to Minnesota and Mitchell to Cleveland after Jalen Brunson put the nail to the coffin. Gobert's one of those guys whose game shuts down no disputes made against him. Despite being a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year and possibly the greatest defender of the previous decade, he plays basketball how a blind man would play it, at least on the offensive end. And when old-timers like Shaq see the type of money he's making, they get sick to their stomachs. Gobert has a lot of haters, and Shaquille O'Neal is very much at the top of that list, alongside Draymond Green. And Shaq's claims aren't baseless. It is ridiculous to think averaging 12 a night can get you $200 million, but that contract is not the norm. That was an attempt by a small market team doing what was necessary to maintain their established core at that time who were winning. In hindsight, it's a gross overpay, but you can't fault Gobert for taking the money. I mean, what do you want him to do? Take less money because other people feel he's not deserving of it? There's plenty of things you can criticize Gobert for, but attacking him for maximizing his earnings makes zero sense. If anything, we should be applauding his agent and putting that man's picture in the Hall of Fame alongside Harrison Barnes' agent. Hated by the media, hated by his peers, and even the fans don't respect him. His season with the Timberwolves has added more fuel to the fire, invoking passionate stances from fan bases across the league who believe that all of Gobert's DPOY trophies are fraudulent. To the masses, Victor Wembanyama was robbed of the award this season, and this claim isn't unfounded. I mean, Wembanyama metaphorically and literally towered over his senior countrymen this year. 2 blocks per game compared to 3.5. Wemby averaged 4.5 blocks while Gobert stayed the same at 2.3 following All-Star break. This is double the blocks every night, and pre-All-Star break he started tame, but that's because it was his first stretch of playing NBA basketball. As a teenager, Victor Wembanyama just had the best defensive season based purely from a statistics standpoint in the last 19 years. In April, he averaged an astonishing 5.6 blocks a game to close out this monster year. Gobert in no point in his career has ever sniffed the 4 mark in his blocks and steals per game, and Wemby comes in and does it as a rookie. Anthony Davis has done it in 4 separate seasons. He is the real victim of Gobert's reign as Defensive Player of the Year, because Davis's candidacy has been overlooked wrongfully too many times. Yes, Gobert is a great defender when you measure him with the analytics, and I will not refute those claims because Gobert is a phenomenal defender. But Anthony Davis is also an analytics darling, and he passes the eye test. The Brow is a dominant defender. The same cannot be said for Gobert, so it's fair to say he's been robbed of a couple Defensive Player of the Year trophies. We can break down the legitimacy to this argument in much more depth, but that's not the point of this video. Without looking at the stats, if you've watched basketball long enough, you know that Rudy Gobert is a great defender, an all-time defender, but he is not in the conversation for the greatest defender ever, as his record-tying trophy cabinet would indicate. He's no Ben Wallace or Hakeem Olajuwon or Dwight Howard or Kawhi Leonard. These are all guys who have been the best defender in the league at some point in their careers, which has never been the case for Gobert. Rudy Gobert ultimately has no control over the judgment cast upon him. It's not his fault he keeps winning awards and he keeps making all this money. All the man can do is accept his blessings with grace, and he's done that throughout his career. If we're talking purely hoops, he's one of the most overrated players in NBA history. But if we're talking in a more general sense, he's a class act. He's suffering from success, but that's a great problem to have. Because, say it with me, would you rather be underpaid or overrated? Thanks for watching.